From the moment Zanele arrived at the Kasozi family compound in Enugu, she felt the coldness in the air, and it had nothing to do with the weather. Chike had told her to be patient with his mother, that she just needed time. But Zanele could feel Madame Ijeoma's dislike from the very first greeting. It was in the way she barely smiled, in the way her eyes scanned Zanele's outfit with quiet judgment, and in the tight-lipped welcome that felt more like a warning than a greeting. Breakfast the next morning was uncomfortable. Madame Ijeoma didn't say much, but her silence was loud. She would glance at Zanele, then at Chike, then back at her plate, frowning ever so slightly. When she did speak, it was in Igbo, whispered sentences Zanele couldn't fully understand, but the tone said enough. And the little things? They added up. No second servings for Zanele. No questions about her family. No effort to include her in conversation. Still, Zanele remained calm. She smiled politely. She offered to help in the kitchen. She complimented the food. She acted with the quiet dignity her own mother had taught her. But inside, she watched everything. Every side eye, every sharp word wrapped in sugar. She wasn't foolish. She could see the games being played. She had come with love in her heart, ready to build a new family. But she was quickly learning that love, in this house, would be tested. And she wasn't going to fail. Even though Chike stood by Zanele and loved her deeply, things at the Kasozi house only got worse. Madame Ijeoma wasn't just cold anymore. She became strategic. Her dislike turned into action, and Zanele felt it with every passing day. One afternoon, Chike came home confused. His mother had invited him to lunch with another woman. Her name was Ngozi, the elegant daughter of a well-known senator. Beautiful, confident, and clearly approved by Madame Ijeoma. Zanele found out when Chike mentioned it casually, not knowing the full story. Her heart sank. Madame Ijeoma wasn't hiding her intentions anymore. She wanted Zanele gone. Then came the dinners. Madame Ijeoma would host family gatherings, invite neighbors and relatives, cook up a feast, and somehow always forget to tell Zanele. Chike would argue with his mother about it, but she would play innocent. Oh, it was just something small, she would say. But Zanele knew better. She saw the pattern. She felt the sting of being treated like she didn't belong. The worst came when whispers started at church. A quiet elder pulled Zanele aside one Sunday, concern in her eyes. "Is it true you have a dark spirit following you?" she asked gently. Zanele was shocked, heart pounding. She realized someone had been spreading lies about her, saying she was cursed, that she had brought bad luck into the Kasozi family. It didn't take long to trace it back to Ijeoma. Zanele tried to stay strong. She told herself love would be enough. Chike kept holding her hand, kept choosing her, but even that couldn't stop the slow ache inside. Being treated like an outsider. Being blamed, judged, pushed away. She stayed silent, but the silence started to hurt. The pressure was building, and her heart couldn't take much more. How much can one woman endure for love? One rainy evening, Zanele went to the back garden to get some fresh air. The house had been tense all day, and she needed a moment alone. As she walked past the open kitchen window, she heard Madame Ijeoma's voice, low but sharp, full of anger. Curious, Zanele stopped. That's when she heard something that made her freeze. "Once my son signs that property deed, you'll be out. I'll make sure of it," Ijeoma said coldly. She thinks she's smart, but she's temporary. Zanele's heart dropped. The words hit her like a slap. This wasn't just dislike anymore. This was a plan to use Chike, take what she wanted, and then throw Zanele away like she didn't matter. In that moment, everything made sense. The fake smiles, the sudden closeness with lawyers, the strange papers Chike had mentioned, ones his mother insisted he sign for the family's future. Ijeoma wasn't just a bitter woman. She was calculating. She wanted control of the house, the land, the legacy. And Zanele was just an obstacle in her way. But what Madame Ijeoma didn't know was that Zanele had been paying attention. She had kept quiet but not blind. She had taken notes, asked gentle questions, and built quiet alliances. And more importantly, she had earned Chike's trust deeply and fully. He told her everything now, even things he hadn't noticed were important. Zanele didn't storm into the kitchen. She didn't confront Ijeoma. Instead, she walked away silently, heart racing, but eyes clear. Yes, her pain was real. But now, she had a different kind of strength. The kind that comes when love isn't blind anymore, but sharp and steady. Let Ijeoma play her games. Zanele had her own. Chike had finally had enough. He saw how his mother treated Zanele, how her words cut like knives even when they were wrapped in smiles. He saw the pain in Zanele's eyes, the strength it took for her to stay, to keep choosing love even when everything around her was against her. And so, one quiet morning, he made a decision. "We're leaving," he told her gently. "Let's go to Accra. Let's do this our way." And just like that, they did. There was no crowd, no traditional fanfare, no white dress or flower girls. Just a small room, a kind officiant, 2 gold rings, and a love that had survived every test. Zanele wore a simple dress, her hair in soft curls. Chike held her hand tightly, never letting go. They said their vows with tears in their eyes and smiles on their lips. It wasn't grand, but it was real. It was theirs. After the ceremony, they took a few days to breathe, to feel free, to dream again. Then they returned to Enugu, hoping for a fresh start. Maybe, just maybe, things would change. But when they got to the Kasozi family compound, the gate was locked. Not just closed, locked with a new padlock, shiny and heavy. The security man avoided eye contact. "Madam said no entry," he muttered. Zanele looked at Chike. Chike looked at the house he grew up in, the gate he used to walk through every day. He felt a strange pain in his chest. Not just rejection, but betrayal. Zanele said nothing. She simply placed her hand on his shoulder, steady and calm. They had married for love. They had chosen each other over pride, over fear, over tradition. But it was clear now, they weren't just starting a new life. They were starting it completely on their own. A few weeks after the Lockgate incident, Chike got an unexpected phone call that IT was his late father's lawyer, asking him to come to the office. "There's something important you need to hear," the man said. Chike was confused. His father had passed years ago, and they had already handled most of the estate. What could be left? When he told his mother about the meeting, Madam Ijeoma insisted on going with him. She looked pleased, even smug. "It's probably just final paperwork," she said, already imagining more land, more money, more control. "Your father would have left it all to me, of course." She wore her finest wrapper that day, walked into the lawyer's office like she owned the place. But something felt different. The lawyer greeted them with a serious face. He handed Chike a brown envelope, thick and sealed. "Your father left a second will," he said. "One he updated privately. Shortly before his passing, he instructed us to wait until you were married to reveal it." Madam Ijeoma's smile froze. "What do you mean updated?" she asked quickly. The lawyer opened the file and cleared his throat. Chief Kasozi left everything, his properties, businesses, and ancestral lands, to his son, Chike, and Chike's wife, Zanele. The room went silent. Chike stared at the paper in disbelief. Madam Ijeoma stood up suddenly. "Know that the mistake that I was his wife. That girl is nothing that he couldn't. But the documents were clear, signed, sealed, and legal. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the late chief had seen everything. He had noticed Zanele long before she knew it. The way she respected elders, the way she supported Chike quietly, the way she stayed calm even when insulted. He had watched his wife grow colder, more controlling, and he had made a quiet decision, one born from wisdom and love, to protect the future, even if it meant shocking the present. Madam Ijeoma thought she held all the power, but the power had already shifted, long before that day in the lawyer's office. The lawyer's office was quiet, too quiet. Everyone was seated, Chike, Zanele, Madam Ijeoma, and a few family members who had been invited. The air felt heavy, like something big was about to happen. Zanele sat close to Chike, her hands cold but steady. She didn't know what to expect, but her heart was beating fast. The lawyer cleared his throat and slowly opened the envelope. "This is the official last will and testament of Chief Emeka Kasozi," he began. His voice was calm, but every word felt like a drumbeat. Then he read the line that changed everything. "To my son Chike and his chosen wife, Zanele, I leave all my properties, businesses, and the Kasozi ancestral lands." The room went completely still. You could hear the sound of someone breathing too fast. Then, like a storm, Madame Ijeoma jumped to her feet. "What?" she shouted, eyes wide, voice shaking. "No, no, no, this was meant for me. Not her. I was his wife." But the lawyer didn't flinch. "Ma, this document is signed, witnessed, and legally sealed. Your husband made his decision." Ijeoma began pacing, tears of anger in her eyes. "She doesn't belong in this family. She's the reason everything is falling apart." Zanele didn't respond. She just sat there, still holding Chike's hand, still quiet, but stronger than ever. She hadn't fought for money. She hadn't even asked for a place. But now her love and her patience have been seen, honored, and chosen. Chike looked at his mother. For the first time, he didn't see the powerful woman who once controlled everything, but he saw someone scared of losing control, someone unable to accept that love, not pride, had won. The will was final. The decision had been made long ago by a man who saw through everything, the lies, the bitterness, the manipulation, and chose to protect the legacy he built by placing it in the hands of those who truly valued it. It wasn't about land or wealth. It was about trust. And Zanele, the woman once pushed aside, had just been handed it all. Just as the tension in the room began to settle, the lawyer turned to Zanele with something in his hand. A small, carefully sealed envelope with her name written on it in neat handwriting. "This is from Chief Kasozi," he said gently. "He left it especially for you." Zanele stared at it for a moment. Her fingers shook as she took the envelope. It felt heavier than it looked, like it carried more than just words. Maybe a truth she didn't know she needed. She opened it slowly, unfolding the paper inside. The handwriting was firm, old-fashioned, and full of emotion. She read quietly, but the words echoed loudly in her heart. "Zanele, I watched you when no one thought I was watching. I saw the way you looked at my son, not for his name or his future, but for who he truly is. That's rare. That's real love. You reminded me of my late wife, soft-spoken but strong, gentle but unshakable." Zanele's eyes began to blur with tears. "I know my wife never accepted you. I wish I could have fixed that before I passed. But I want you to understand something. Her pride, it's her shield. Beneath it is pain. Life hardened her. Please, if you can, forgive her. Take care of our legacy. Not just the land, but the name. Lead with love. Build something better. Something lasting. Chief Emeka Kasozi." Zanele folded the letter carefully, holding it to her chest for a moment. Everyone in the room watched her, but she didn't say a word. She didn't need to. That letter wasn't just a blessing. It was a torch being passed from the past to the future. For the first time, Zanele truly felt seen. Not just as Chike's wife, not just as the outsider who endured, but as the woman trusted to carry an entire legacy. And even with all the hurt she had faced, something deep inside her began to soften. Maybe forgiveness wouldn't erase the pain, but it could open the door to healing. The next day, the storm finally broke. Madame Ijeoma came to the house, not with peace, but with fury in her eyes. She barged into the living room, her voice sharp and shaking. Chike tried to calm her, but she was already shouting. "You bewitched him," she screamed at Zanele. "You used charms, didn't you? That's how you turned him against me. That's how you fooled my husband. You wanted this all along." Zanele stood up slowly. Her face was calm, but her heart was pounding. For months, she had held in her pain. She had taken every insult, every cold shoulder, every lie. But now enough was enough. "I didn't bewitch anyone," she said quietly, but firmly. "I loved your son. I stood by him. I respected this family, even when I was treated like I didn't belong." Ijeoma scoffed, eyes wide with rage. "You killed this family. You stole what was mine." Zanele didn't flinch. "I stayed silent, not weak," she said, her voice steady. "I didn't need to fight with words or force. I let the truth speak for me, and now it has." She stepped a little closer. "You didn't lose your power, madam. You lost your family. You pushed away the people who loved you because you were too proud to see past your pain." The room fell quiet. Chike looked at his mother, his expression full of sadness. This wasn't the strong woman he grew up with. This was someone broken by bitterness. For the first time, Madame Ijeoma didn't have anything to say. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes, once so sharp and cold, softened just a little. She looked smaller somehow, not because of what she had lost, but because she finally saw it. Zanele didn't yell. She didn't throw back the insults. She stood there, calm and honest, and spoke the one truth that needed to be heard. And for the first time since all the chaos began, Madame Ijeoma had no words. Zanele could have chosen to live in comfort after everything. She had the houses, the businesses, the land. She had the respect, the title, and the name. After all the pain she went through, no one would have blamed her for disappearing into a quiet, soft life. But Zanele had seen too much. Too many women like her, rejected, silenced, made to feel small. Too many couples struggling in silence, breaking under pressure from family, tradition, or shame. She remembered the sting of being told she didn't belong, the heartbreak of standing outside a locked gate. And she knew she had to do something more. So, instead of just sitting in comfort, she rolled up her sleeves and went to work. She used part of her inheritance to open an NGO right there in Enugu. It was small at first, a rented office, a few volunteers, some secondhand furniture. But the vision was big. She called it home again, a place where women who had been pushed out of their marriages or denied love could find shelter, support, and strength. She also offered marriage counseling, support groups, and small business training. She worked with pastors and community leaders to change the narrative around love, respect, and forgiveness. Slowly, people started to notice. The same society that once whispered about her now came to her for guidance. She didn't just create a safe space. She built a movement. And through it all, Zanele never spoke with bitterness. When asked about her story, she didn't focus on revenge. She spoke about healing, about second chances, about turning scars into stepping stones. Because for her, this wasn't about winning. It was about transforming. Zanele didn't just survive what Madame Ijeoma put her through. She turned into something bigger than herself. Her pain didn't just end. It became a purpose, a light for others walking through the same darkness she once knew. And that, more than any inheritance, became her true legacy. Years passed, and Home Again had grown into something beautiful. What started as a small room in Enugu had become a full center, with counseling rooms, training spaces, and a warm kitchen that always had food for anyone who needed it. The official opening ceremony of the new building was a big event. Community leaders, women from all over the region, and even government officials came to celebrate Zanele's work. But the most unexpected guest that day was Madame Ijeoma. She arrived slowly, wearing a simple wrapper, her once proud posture now softened by age and life. Her eyes didn't carry the same fire, just quietness. Regret. She stood at the back, unsure if she even had the right to be there. Zanele saw her. Without hesitation, she walked over and gently took her hand. "Come," she said, smiling. "You should sit near the front." People watched as Zanele led the woman who had once tried to destroy her to a place of honor. As they sat, Zanele stepped up to speak. She looked around the room filled with women, survivors, dreamers, fighters, and then glanced at Ijeoma. "Forgiveness doesn't erase the past," she said, her voice strong and warm. "But it gives us all a future." The room burst into applause, not just for her strength, but for something even deeper, her grace. In that moment, Zanele showed everyone what true power looks like. Not control, not revenge, not pride, but love that rises above pain, and the ability to offer a seat to someone who once slammed the door shut. It wasn't just a final scene. It was a full-circle moment. Healing, hope, and a future built on forgiveness.